Those who arrested Jesus led him to the house of the high priest. All the leading priests, the older Jewish leaders, and the teachers of the law were gathered there. Peter followed Jesus, but stayed back at a distance. He followed him to the yard of the high priest's house. He went into the yard and sat there with the guards, warming himself by their fire. The leading priest and the whole high council tried to find something that Jesus had done wrong so they could kill him. But the council could find no proof that would allow them to kill Jesus. Many people came and told lies against Jesus, but they all said different things. None of them agreed. Then some others stood up and told more lies against Jesus. They said, "We heard this man say, 'I will destroy this temple built by human hands. And 3 days later, I will build another temple, not made by human hands.'" But also, what these people said did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before everyone and said to Jesus, "These people said things against you. Do you have something to say about their charges? Are they telling the truth?" But Jesus said nothing to answer him. The high priest asked Jesus another question. "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the blessed God?" Jesus answered, "Yes, I am the Son of God. And in the future, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right side of God All-Powerful. And you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven." When the high priest heard this, he tore his clothes in anger. He said, "We don't need any more witnesses. You all heard these insults to God. What do you think?" Everyone agreed that Jesus was guilty and must be killed. Some of the people there spit at him. They covered his eyes and hit him with their fist. They said, "Be a prophet and tell us, who hit you?" Then the guards led Jesus away and beat him. The men who arrested Jesus led him to the house of Caiaphas the high priest. The teachers of the law and the older Jewish leaders were gathered there. Peter followed Jesus, but stayed back at a distance. He followed him to the yard of the high priest's house. Peter went in and sat with the guards. He wanted to see what would happen to Jesus. The leading priest and the high council tried to find something against Jesus so that they could kill him. They tried to find people to lie and say that Jesus had done wrong. Many people came and told lies about him, but the council could find no real reason to kill him. Then 2 people came and said, "This man said, 'I can destroy the temple of God and build it again in 3 days.'" Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Don't you have anything to say about these charges against you? Are they telling the truth?" But Jesus said nothing. Again the high priest said to Jesus, "You are now under oath. I command you by the power of the living God to tell us the truth. Tell us, are you the Messiah, the Son of God?" Jesus answered, "Yes, that's right. But I tell you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right side of God, and you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven." When the high priest heard this, he tore his clothes in anger. He said, "This man has said things that insult God. We don't need any more witnesses. You all heard his insulting words. What do you think?" The Jewish leaders answered, "He is guilty and he must die." Then some there spit in Jesus' face, and they hit him with their fist. Others slapped him. They said, "Show us that you are the prophet, Messiah. Tell us who hit you." While Peter was still in the yard, a servant girl of the high priest came there. She saw him warming himself by the fire. She looked closely at him and said, "You were with Jesus, that man from Nazareth." But Peter said this was not true. "That makes no sense," he said. "I don't know what you're talking about." Then he left and went to the entrance of the yard, and a rooster crowed. When the servant girl saw him there, she began saying to the people standing around, "This man is one of them." Again, Peter said it was not true. A short time later, the people standing there said, "We know you are one of them, because you are from Galilee." Then Peter began to curse. He said, "I swear to God, I don't know this man you are talking about." As soon as Peter said this, the rooster crowed the second time. Then he remembered what Jesus had told him. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will say 3 times that you don't know me." While Peter was sitting outside in the yard, a servant girl came up to him. She said, "You are with Jesus, that man from Galilee." But Peter told everyone there that this was not true. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he left the yard. At the gate, another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, Peter said he was never with Jesus. He said, "I swear to God, I don't know the man." A short time later, those standing there went to Peter and said, "We know you are one of them. It's clear from the way you talk." Then Peter began to curse. He said, "I swear to God, I don't know the man." As soon as he said this, a rooster crowed. Then he remembered what Jesus had told him. "Before the rooster crows, you will say 3 times that you don't know me." Then Peter went outside and cried bitterly. They arrested Jesus and took him away to the house of the high priest. Peter followed Jesus, but stayed back at a distance. The soldiers started a fire in the middle of the yard and sat together. Peter sat with them. A servant girl saw him sitting there. She could see because of the light from the fire. She looked closely at Peter's face. Then she said, "This man was also with Jesus." But Peter said this was not true. He said, "Lady, I don't know him." A short time later, someone else saw Peter and said, "You are also one of them." But Peter said, "Man, I am not." About an hour later, another man said, "It's true. I'm sure this man was with him because he is from Galilee." But Peter said, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Immediately, while he was still speaking, a rooster crowed. Then the Lord turned and looked into Peter's eyes, and Peter remembered what the Lord had said. "Before the rooster crows in the morning, you will say 3 times that you don't know me." Then Peter went outside and cried bitterly. Simon Peter was standing at the fire, keeping himself warm. The other people said to Peter, "Aren't you one of the followers of that man?" Peter denied it. He said, "No, I'm not." One of the servants of the high priest was there. He was a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off. The servant said, "I think I saw you with him in the garden." But again Peter said, "No, I was not with him." As soon as he said this, a rooster crowed. Very early in the morning, the leading priest, the older Jewish leaders, the teachers of the law, and the whole high council decided what to do with Jesus. They tied him, led him away, and handed him over to Governor Pilate. Early the next morning, all the leading priests and older leaders of the people met and decided to kill Jesus. They tied him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. The next morning, the older leaders of the people, the leading priests, and the teachers of the law came together. They led Jesus away to their high council. They said, "If you are the Messiah, then tell us that you are." Jesus said to them, "If I tell you I am the Messiah, you will not believe me. And if I ask you, you will not answer. But beginning now, the Son of Man will sit at the right side of God All-Powerful." They all said, "Then are you the Son of God?" Jesus said to them, "You are right in saying that I am." They said, "Why do we need witnesses now? We all heard what he said." Judas saw that they had decided to kill Jesus. He was the one who had handed him over. When he saw what happened, he was very sorry for what he had done. So he took the 30 silver coins back to the priest and their older leaders. Judas said, "I sinned. I handed over to you an innocent man to be killed." The Jewish leaders answered, "We don't care. That's a problem for you, not us." So Judas threw the money into the temple. Then he went out from there and hanged himself. The leading priest picked up the silver coins in the temple. They said, "Our law does not allow us to keep this money with the temple money, because this money has paid for a man's death." So they decided to use the money to buy a field called Potter's Field. This field would be a place to bury people who died while visiting in Jerusalem. That is why that field is still called the Field of Blood. This showed the full meaning of what Jeremiah the prophet said. They took 30 silver coins. That was how much the people of Israel decided to pay for his life. They used those 30 silver coins to buy the Potter's Field, as the Lord commanded me.